I really enjoy Lomez's concept of the Longhouse, which he popularized in February 2023 with this article from First Things, where he describes the problem with modern society, in particular politics, is that it has been longhoused, as in it has been given over to the reign of the, I guess what I'm going to call toxic femininity of a certain kind of woman, not all women. And these women are, through their own projected fears and insecurities, inflicting a very tyrannical, devouring feminine energy into public life, and this is having serious knock-on effects. And actually, I think what this is giving rise to is a desire for the return of patriarchy, a desire for the return of confident, morally forward-looking men, so that many women in our society can actually feel that things are being taken care of, as in every generation up to pretty much this one, they had been able to feel. Because if you think back all throughout history, men were the ones actually in control of things and doing things and dealing with problems, and so the women were able and had to be able to rely upon them. And this upward pressure made men competent and ready to take moral responsibility for the things they did. And that means willing to assert moral authority. And in the modern liberal era, what men aren't really willing to do is assert moral authority that is parochially theirs. They can play to the liberal outgroup politics that this kind of toxic femininity uses and trades in, but they are forever second-class citizens and second-class moral legislators in that kind of paradigm. In fact, I really like some of the ways he puts this. So the Longhouse was this large communal hall, and it allowed this sort of archetype of the den mother to reign over it and watch every little tiny interaction in order to make sure, as he puts it, there is a centering of feminine needs and feminine methods for controlling, directing, and modelling behaviour. And by God, do we see that now? And lots of people don't want it. I mean, many women don't want it, but obviously many men don't want it. And we see that many men don't want it in the fact that they're voting for Donald Trump. I mean, if there's anyone in America who represents a return to patriarchy, it's Donald Trump. Now, as you can see, even women went towards Trump here. Back in 2018, the Longhouse was basically at its strongest. Women, a third of women, ages 18 to 29, were voting hard Democrat, very hard Democrat. But as you can see, this has gone down. Women tend to be more, actually, maybe the Republicans are right, and young men are just going hard into the right, hard to patriarchy. No, we'd like the rule of strong, competent men, because there's a difference in the rule. When men are in charge, men are very rarely domineering over one another, right? The aspect of patriarchy and the most important values that it holds are fidelity, loyalty, virtue, courage, and honesty, as in those things that keep a healthy hierarchy in place. And so this is what these are the values that young men are voting for. They're not, and women as well, they're not voting for the overbearing and frankly often deceptive feminine, the sort of den mother toxic femininity that is interested in ameliorating hurt feelings at any cost, diffusing blame when there is a problem and something has gone wrong and someone is to blame for this, diffusing that across as wide a group as possible so that nobody has to feel that they personally take responsibility and therefore has to undergo a significant amount of personal growth, frankly. And so you can see that there's a stark difference in the kind of the attitude. I guess, how would you describe it? The kind of the archetypes of these kinds of politics. Now, I really like the archetype of the den mother versus the sky father, very Evolian, and properly invokes, I think, the direction, the sort of ones looking upwards to greatness, glory, transcendence, and the things that are required to do that are the actualization of yourself as a man through the taking responsibility of the things and circumstances around you, versus the underworld of the constant excuses and backbiting and blame placing, externalization of blame, and the irresponsible nature of that kind of society. And I really think that we're seeing the consequences of that, and the differences being brought in stark portrayal these days. Because you remember the other week when this was the Labour front bench, just a series of women with the most haggard looking faces, like things have gone horribly wrong and there is just no one to point the finger at, right? This is den mother, and all of these women are den mother politicians. Jess Phillips in particular, but all of them are exactly like that. We have to worry about the feelings. We have to diffuse blame. We have to make sure the men aren't in charge, because we actually don't have faith in the men. And that's really what the crux of all den mother politics is. Because like I said, men actually can and do place faith in one another. Men expect other men to be upright and honest and forthright, and to take the responsibility for their own actions. And so if something comes under their personal magisterium in their department or in their squad or whatever it is they're doing, and it goes wrong, you're to blame. You take the blame. You are the one who's held accountable. The den mother politics doesn't want that, and so it needs to have absolute control over everything to make sure that something doesn't go wrong. Because if something goes wrong, no one person here is actually well equipped to deal with it. They're not morally or psychologically or practically equipped to actually fix the problems. Whereas if you have men who are used to taking responsibility for things, a culture of taking responsibility, you can be like, no, I'm confident that that person's got a handle on things and that he can handle anything that comes his way. I know him. He's competent. He can do these things. And again, I'm not saying this is, all men versus all women at all, actually. And as you can see, women are going towards that form of politics over the den mother feminist form of politics, because we can see the results. And a lot of women actually don't hate men, love men, and trust men to be moral arbiters in their own domains, which, again, as things had always been. So much of the culture of being a man and raising sons to be men is about taking responsibility. It is about, frankly, making sure that you personally are emotionally stable enough to deal with the problem. And that means never crying in public. This was just an unacceptable thing to see. This was a person who'd, frankly, lost control of themselves. And as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the first female Chancellor of the Exchequer, I might add, not appropriate. Right? Not appropriate. It's your job to take responsibility for this. You can't just break down and have a little cry in the middle of the House of Commons. That is not acceptable. There is a reason that people are voting against this den mother politics, because when the meat hits the metal, things get rough. You can't just have a little cry. People are relying upon you. You can't say, well, there's plenty of people to spread the blame on. No, you're responsible, and you're crying in the Houses of Parliament. It's not on. And so this kind of den mother politics, again, just really, really, really risk averse, and it turns into an absolute tyranny. Here's a great example, right? Paul here has got a video. I won't play the video because he just summarised it here, just fine. But he says, I recently got stopped and ticketed by the City of London police for, I kid you not, cycling no-handed. It's not a crime. Even though it's clearly not an offence, the officer, pictured here, said that they were ticketing me under the Human Rights Act as I was infringing on other people's Article 2 right to life in case I fell off and injured them. Utterly bonkers stuff. Well, to a man, that does seem utterly bonkers, right? Because you think, well, that's not a very great risk of that, actually. Not only do I not think I'm going to have an accident because I know how to ride no-handed, but even if I have an accident, it's probably not going to be fatal. So why would I worry about that? I'm probably not going to kill someone else. But here we are with the overbearing, long-housing den mother being like, no, I'm absolutely doing this under Article 2 of Human Rights. Now, I mean, if you look this up, this is Article 2 of the Human Rights Act This means that nobody, including the government, can try to end your life. It also means the government should take appropriate measures to safeguard life by making laws to protect you, and in some circumstances, by taking steps to protect you if your life is at risk. Public authorities should also consider your right to life when making decisions that might put you in danger that affect your life expectancy. If a member of your family dies in circumstances that involve the state, you may have a right to an investigation. The state is also required to investigate suspicious deaths and deaths in custody. This does not mean that you have a right to die, and it also makes the death penalty illegal in the UK. So when we win, the Human Rights Act is just going in its entirety. This is nonsense, right? But you see there, nothing about this is I was riding no-handed, and through a very freak series of events, somehow managed to kill someone, or myself, or whatever, right? Very unlikely, not really appropriate measures, but to the den mother, anything that makes her feel nervous, anything that makes her feel afraid has to be dealt with. And the thing is, there is no limit to what makes them feel afraid, so then it becomes rational. No, we need a longhouse, so I can see everything that's happening in it. What Bentham might have called the panopticon. I need to see everything in it in order to minimize the results. And the thing is, the less likely things become, the more amplified the even more unlikely things are in the minds of the den mother. So it's like, yeah, okay, I mean, you know, there's no danger riding down the street in the City of London, really, I imagine. But what if you fell off because you were riding no-handed and you crashed into a mum and her baby flew out of the pram and under the wheels of a car? And, oh my God, that's a right-to-life violation. You see, like, the highly unlikely sequence of events that you have to fictionalize, going way beyond what the thing was even vaguely intended for, is justified to the den mother who felt momentarily insecure. You made her feel insecure. Whereas, remember, your job as a man is to make her feel secure. Now, the right way to structure a civilization is that this person isn't really a police officer, right? This person is a hall monitor. This person, 5'4", 150 pounds at most. Like, sorry, you are not part of the constabulary, right? You are not a Bobby on the beat. You are a hall monitor who has been perversely empowered to hall monitor people who are doing nothing wrong. If this guy was a 6-foot African fellow with a machete running around the street, there's no way she's approaching him. But that ever more infringes on the articles of right to life, but she ain't going anywhere near him. She's like, okay, I'm going to need some backup here. And this is something that we saw, remember, in the Manchester airport assault. Now, when this guy was... The video originally went viral with him kicking him in the head and stomping on him, everyone was like, my God, because that was all they saw. What they didn't see is this man punching a dainty woman just like her because she thought she'd been empowered by the Longhouse to be one of these den mother hall monitors, and it turns out that the patriarchy actually doesn't care. And of course, what it required was the big man to come along to finally put an end to it. Because that's really what this is all about. This only happens because we permit it. But really, it's not what they actually want, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing any of this. Otherwise you wouldn't be getting people ticketing you for cycling no-handed. She felt afraid, and men's lack of moral authority is what made her feel afraid. And the more we play into these absolute fantasies, the more women are getting hurt, but also the more afraid they're going to feel. And so they'll just keep going. And so when you get things like this, and I'm sure you've seen a million things like this, obviously white, probably queer, girl walking around with her smug smirk because she feels safe right now, going, I can't wait for the West to fall. She's not actually asking for the West to fall. What she is asking for is for when men have decided that they have had enough. Too much pain and suffering has been caused by the den mothers. This is not acceptable. The men have to be able to take control again and actually set the proper order of the world so that women can once again feel safe, including the den mothers. And so the den mother is an expression of a sort of pathological fear because men have really absconded their duties as protectors, but they will have to come back soon because things are getting a lot worse.